Hello, hello. Hi, everybody. Just looking for Laurel. Welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome, everyone. Glad you guys could join us on the lunch hour. Welcome. We'll get started soon. Just waiting on Laurel to join us. As we all know, she's working with a newborn, so we're going to give her some grace. There she is. Hello.
Hi.
I love that you look surprised at yourself.
Wait, I can't even blame not being able to be ready for this on this baby. It's because I don't know how to work technology anymore. I
Oh,
was like, why isn't it coming up? Oh, Laurel, you have to go to the live first.
join us. Join us. Thank you.
Of course. Of course.
It's fine. It's fine. Welcome, everyone. It's Birth Stories in Color live with Instagram. We are here with today's guest, our very own Laurel Courier.
Hi.
For some people who may have met Laurel by either sharing their own story or have been following along with us, just a little background. She is a very passionate birth worker, specializing as a certified lactation counselor as well as a birth and postpartum doula. And she's my other half here at Birth Stories in Color. Laurel, do you want to share a little bit about your family with everyone who may not know you?
I can definitely do that. Love the introduction. Yes, I am Laurel. I am the second body of this podcast with Danielle. I'm a mama of three now. Um, I'm married to my amazing partner, Frankie, and birth work was a surprise, has been a surprise on like this journey of life for me. But as Danielle said, I am so passionate about it. It has changed me as a person, and I just love being able to provide that love to other families. And I'm obsessed with giraffes. Fun fact.
Fun fact. Yes, she is. So today we are going to talk about your latest home birth, which got a little bit of introduction from the Today Show on their website. You guys can find that. We've linked it on our page. But you get to share the real deal, the full story, as much as you want to today with us. So, you want to tell us a little bit about your pregnancy?
Yeah. As a what's the word I'm looking for? Just so everyone's aware, we always say on this podcast, our work as mothers and our work on this podcast are intertwined. So if you hear a little one, Miss Imani is joining us as a coworker. She's currently sleeping, but she is here. So, my pregnancy, yes, I should first start off with was unexpected. We thought we were a two and done family, but the world, the universe, God had other plans for us. So we had actually decided to move to New Orleans. So, as much you know, we're based in Columbus, Ohio. We were in Columbus, Ohio, but my husband was on sabbatical. We decided to take some time and move to New Orleans for that sabbatical. And that was all done prior to finding out that I was pregnant. So there was no plans. And then I think maybe a couple months before we were supposed to make the move, we found out I was pregnant, and that shifted a lot of things because I had to now find a care team, decide what this birth was going to look like, and then also just navigating a pregnancy not home. And so I really, I think the most consistent transitions are hard for me. But I was very open to this transition. I was open to this, the unknownness of all of this. But I knew that in order to create a safe space for this pregnancy and for this birth, I had to really be one with my body, because that was going to be the most consistent aspect of all of this, me. And so the pregnancy was, it was it was tough in the fact that, one, we are still in a pandemic. And so not being able to be with friends, be with community, be with family always in the way that I wanted to and was used to was tough. Also, we moved to New Orleans in August, and soon after moving here, Hurricane Ida decided to show out. So we had to evacuate to Texas for 2 weeks, which was, I will say, like, it was an okay experience because we were able to make it that, and like we were with family, but it still was tough, right, to be pregnant and trying to navigate the stressors of that. Like I said, I had to find a new birth team, and so trying to make sure that I had a team that would support me in the way that I wanted this birth to go. And yeah, just being pregnant somewhere different as well, right? Like, I was eating different, I was moving different. The body holds the score. So my body was always responding to all of those things. And so there were definitely some tough parts of the pregnancy. Early, my first trimester, I was sick. I was constantly nauseous, throwing up, spent a lot of time in the bed, a lot of time at the toilet. And that was also pretty difficult, not only because it's just tough to work through, but I also had two other little ones. And Frankie, of course, like, really held it down. But it was a lot. It was a lot. And especially because, like I said, this was unexpected. And I will be honest that, you know, the first day you're in that, like, shock and that excitement of, wow, you know, for us, even though it was unexpected, we knew that this was something that we were ready for. But I did allow myself, like, that second day after coming off that high, to kind of settle into being sad. I was sad because I had gotten to a place with my two others that, like, I felt comfortable. I was feeling confident about where I was in my body, what I was doing with work, what I was doing as a partner, and just how life was moving along. And I felt like I knew that there was going to be a loss of all of that, because you do become someone different after every single child is born. And I allowed myself the time to grieve and be in that. And I was honest with Frankie about those things too. Like, I'm sad that I'm going to lose this, but also, you know, excited and hopeful. But I allowed myself to sit in the sadness of that. So that was pregnancy in a rambled kind of way.
No, you're fine. So when you think about the preparation of being in this new space and navigating what it was actually like to build this birth team that you wanted, what steps did you take, and what did you already know going into New Orleans?
Yeah. So if you know Monique McChrystal, she is our friend, but also was my doula, was both of our doulas, but was my doula for Omari. You know that her energy is just everything, and it's powerful, and it really allows you to tap into your own in such a beautiful way. And I knew no matter what, I needed Monique to be that like grounding force as a doula for us. And so when I found out I was pregnant, I told Frankie, I was like, we're getting Monique. I asked Monique, like, hey, I know we're moving, but can we try to make this work? Because Monique is also based in Columbus. But we, she agreed to move forward with us, and we decided to make a plan that, whenever we thought birth was happening, as far as the birth part would go, she would make her way to us. But we went through all the prep virtually. So phone calls, FaceTime, and still did all those like check-ins. And I think the thing that made it so much easier is that we already had what I knew is I already had, and Frankie and I have such a great relationship with her that even if it was going to be virtual, she knew us enough to be able to read us if she needed to dig deeper about things, or if she wasn't able to make it to the birth. Her and Frankie have such a great relationship that she would be able to coach, tap in, and support him no matter what. So that felt very comforting that she was going to be home in that sense. I am lucky to be surrounded by wonderful birth workers, and one of our good friends, Ashley Hill, worked for the birthmark doulas. And so I've, from her, I knew how great they were, but she was able to provide, based on her own home births, a great source of midwives. So the New Orleans midwives is who we worked with. And they were wonderful in being able to help me navigate, because every state has its own rules about home birth. And so, going in, they were able to support us on like, here's what we're able to do in New Orleans as far as care as a home birth. And that aligned with, I wanted to be able to trust my team, to be able to really, I wanted everybody to be as hands off as possible and just allow my body and baby to do what they needed to do. And I wanted my younger two to be involved. And I wanted this experience to be theirs as well. And so we were all in alignment with that. And then I also happened to be working with birthmark doulas while out here. And I think that was even wonderful because I got to experience their care as my coworkers, and making sure I was setting boundaries about what I could and couldn't do. I was taking the breaks that I needed, and we'll talk about this also in postpartum, but having an environment that honored that, yeah, you can be doing this work, but you have to take care of yourself too in order to do it the best way that you can. So all of that was really helpful, in all of them were a great community to really tap into as I was preparing for birth. And then of course, Destiny, all of my friends who also happen to be birth workers, constantly checking in like, Laurel, sit down. Once you have one doula friend, you are constantly covered. So I was covered in care, and I really have felt that this pregnancy and with my birth and postpartum.
That's awesome. Do the home birth midwives there, what is like is it self-pay for them?
Yes. So it is out of pocket, but they're great in that they do have resources to help if you're trying to file for reimbursement. They do have someone who can help support you for that if your insurance will recognize the importance of that. Some other stipulations is like they can't do breech births. They can't do twin birth here, which was different from living in Ohio. They also here have the ability to administer and do lab work. And that wasn't something that I was able to do when I had my son back in Ohio. So just being able, but then with that, it comes their own regulations and rules, right? So like, yeah, they're able to do, here I was able to have lab work done with them and do that. But then let's say if baby happened to be breached, I would have to transfer. There was also that like here you have to be in labor by 42 weeks. That was not the case in Ohio. So that did put a timeline which, for me, my kiddos go over their estimated due dates. It's just the thing that they love.
Over and over. They don't just go to 40 and 1. That's just,
No, I
don't
go
confuse the
42.
people. Yeah.
I am a 42 consistently. But they did put a timeline, right? An uncomfortable timeline of like, I wanted a home birth. And so what are some natural things we can do to get baby to get on board with all of that? And that was unsettling at times, but I felt very much supported by Monique and by them of constantly being like, what will happen will happen. I said this in the Today Show article, but there was a plan in place for transfer, right? We had what would happen if I needed to go to the hospital, who could support me, who could come with me. And not only just because if there was an emergency, but if I decided, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore, this home birth, I want to go to hospital, I had that as an option and we had a plan for it. My midwife teams have a relationship with a couple hospitals. So we knew that if that was the case, what would be a smooth transition, right? And that's all prep work. That has to be done to make sure that you still feel safe in your decision to have a home birth.
That's important to know. I think that people think they get to a point of no return. And then that anxiety from that can actually alter your birth as well. As feeling like it was, well, I'm doing it now, right? We paid
Right.
for it, or we this and that. Like, I'm stuck. You're not stuck. That's important to know. And that's, sometimes you just need someone else to reassure you in that moment, because there are moments, of course, in labor where people are like, look, I'm done in general, no matter where they're birthing. You can't do that. There's no point.
Right.
It's coming. So yeah, it's important that people hear that when they think about home birth, and it's not like chickening out. It's like recognizing what your body is feeling and saying and trusting yourself. And
Exactly.
that's key. That's a key, a major key. Tell us
Yep.
about the birth experience. Everybody's waiting for this part.
Right.
I've had doses, guys, because I've been waiting for this moment myself. So.
This birth, man, I will say, I kept telling everyone, so I go 42 weeks. My first daughter was 36 hours. My son was 12. I was like, I want 3 hours. That's all. I just want 3 hours of labor and birth. Everybody was like, all right, calm down. Maybe, but maybe not. But I will say, when was it? We did have a slight scare. So December 25th, like Christmas Day, I woke up in the middle of the night and I was having some bleeding. And, my pregnancies are pretty straightforward. I'm very low risk. I am pretty consistent. So that was definitely scary. And I remember like waking up or like going to the bathroom and then like settling down. And I was like, let me just call the midwives. Called the midwives and was able to really talk through. And the thing that I loved about Effie and Audrey is that I never felt scared, even when things were abnormal for me. And that was like a reminder that Effie, that's who I was talking to at the time, was like, for some people, this is what happens. And that might be different for you, but here's what that means. Like, we're still okay. You're still okay. Here's how we're going to monitor. And that allowed me to really settle back in and like be clear-headed about what did I want to do next, right? How did I want to move forward from that point? And what I needed to do to not sit in like deep fear that something was wrong. Ultimately, I think my cervix was softening things. My body was making changes. And that was a way. Also, during that time, we were making plans and a move to where we would actually end up, the place we would actually end up having our daughter, because we were living with my in-laws at the time. But I think it was also a reminder to me that I needed to settle down and settle in, that things were coming. So that happened in December, and then things got quiet. And then, so Imani was born February 4th, but about 2 weeks before that, we had been in constant communication with Monique. I wasn't really having any like big signs of anything. I wasn't getting any cervical checks done. We were just watching my body, and I started having some contractions, and nothing crazy or out of the ordinary, but there was one night where things really picked up. And so we had a conversation with Monique, and we were like, yeah, I think you should probably head down. We'll, get you out here just in case. We didn't know that it would be 2 weeks before things would actually happen. But I am so grateful. We are so grateful for that time that we got with Monique. And I think, one, it enriched our friendship, but it also, I think, allowed me to progress and be comfortable and settled and at peace, to be able to have as fast of a birth as I did. Monique came and, was able to coach us about doing some walking, doing some intentional positional shifts. She was here with the older kiddos, so that was also great to have that as a distraction for them. Making sure I was eating, making sure I was providing nourishment to my body to really set me up for like this big shift that was about to happen. I, was having a lot of contractions throughout the night, and like things would slow during the day. So we, would try to do movement and try to walk and keep the momentum going. But within all of that, it was always nice to have Monique there to remind both Frankie and I, like, this is the process. Sit in the process. You're doing great, even if you can't see it. Like, it's not tangible just yet. I did get 2 cervical checks done because, like I said, we were like getting close to that 42 weeks. And each time cervix was softening, I was making progress. Even if I went from, I think, 2 centimeters one week, and the next week I was 4 centimeters, but my cervix was getting softer and I was having more of a bloody show. I was losing my mucus plug, which I had never done with my other 2. So it was also great to have those things, because those were things that I had hoped like my body would show me. But it did. I say that as a reminder to people, because we say it all the time. Just knowing how many centimeters dilated you are doesn't tell you the whole story, right? I needed all of those pieces to remind me, like, you're making progress. Mm-hmm. So, we did all of that. And then the night of her birth, it's funny, my brother-in-law actually has the same birthday as she does. And he kept being like, yeah, she's coming. She's coming on your birthday. She's coming. And he actually had been like texting with Frankie, and like around 8:30 they were texting, and Imani was born at 10:08. So it was like a huge shift. But basically that day was crazy. A lot of things happened. There was like a fire alarm. We had to leave the building at one point. I decided, and we should have known then, I was like going to clean all the bathrooms. So I'm like cleaning. I decided I was going to make dinner for everyone. Like, I was in full nesting mode. But what was wonderful is that I was able to go in and out of labor lane. Like, I was having contractions, but like they weren't intense, like where I couldn't do anything. I would go in, have a contraction, and then be able to come out and just like jump back in the conversation or keep playing with the kids. And so to me, I was like, yeah, nothing's happening. Like, we've been doing this for a while. Me, during bath time, like me, Monique, and Omari were having a dance party out here. Like, it was just wonderful. But then there became a shift, and it was like after dinner, it was after both kiddos were out of the bath, and they just got intense. Like, contractions just got intense, and not even in an intense way of like, I still couldn't be in the rhythm, but intense in like, oh, this is, my whole body was experiencing them at this point. And it came fast. There was no buildup. They just all of a sudden hit me. And so, I'm in it. Frankie and Monique are like having a conversation. And I also told Frankie, like, I wanted him to like film. We wanted to film part of this too, like with like a camera, not even just with our phone. So he's like filming. The other kiddos are coming around. But these are picking up, and like I'm sitting in the bathroom, and the bathroom is kind of small, but I'm like in the bathroom on the toilet, and then my water breaks, and I'm like, okay, this is full go now. And it was funny because Monique had just asked me do you think we like how do you feel about calling the midwives? And I was like, I don't know, Monique, what do you think? And she's like, well, what do you think? I was like, gosh, all
She
right,
will
fine.
not.
Yeah.
She will not speak for you. That I do.
um, but giving me back, hi, guys, we're talking about you.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hey, little boo.
Hey. If you want this. You don't know. Okay. Yeah. But she did that to let me be in my own power about that decision, right? So I said, yeah, we should call them. And then right then my water broke. But she had already been in communication with you because, as you know, doulas, we've already like we're 10 steps ahead sometimes. So she knew, like, she was already giving them updates. And so they are coming at this point, and there's like Omari's like, you know, patting me on my back. Both of my kiddos are like using the language that they've seen me use. So like, be calm and you've got this, and like rubbing my back. Frankie's, you know, providing support. And then, you know, Monique was like, well, why don't you just get in the shower? That way you can get some water on your back and kind of maybe help slow things down, because I'm in the part now of like moaning and groaning and roaring, but I'm not feeling any pressure at this point. I'm just feeling intense pain. And like when I tell you, I could feel my pelvis opening up, which is just this magical and beautiful thing, to be like. I'm just so joyous that I could be in my body in that way. But I did feel like my pelvis opening up, and this birth was a lot of cursing and a lot of yelling. And there was like one point Monique and Frankie are like, okay, do the horse lips. And I tried to do like the horse lips to kind of like soften my face. And I just remember being like, no, I can't do it, y'all. I need to shout. So just like roaring, right? But I get in the shower, the water feels good, but then it just turns into like, yes, this baby is coming. Like, it's happening. And I'm not sure what happens, but I do remember like Monique was the only one in the bathroom with me at this point. Frankie had gone to get the midwives up, and I'm like holding on to her. And then I'm like, I just need to drop down. So I drop down into a squat and I make this humongous roar. And like next thing I know, I can feel Imani's head and her hand. And I'm like, holy shit, she's here. Like I'm holding her. And then I remember Monique being like, okay, take a deep breath and like push again. And so I take a deep breath, and I don't remember pushing. Like this was all my body. And then I take a deep breath, and Imani just falls like into my arms. And I'm just like, I don't even have words. Like and so I'm just like holding her. But as that's happening, then I shout out. Like she wasn't crying right away. She was just like looking at me. But I shout that out, and then I see Effie and Audrey like come into the bathroom. And unbeknownst to me at this time, but was really beautiful is Naomi. So I wanted Naomi and I wanted Omari to like really be a part of this to their comfort level. But while Frankie went to go get the midwives who were like running up the stairs, he had given the phone to Naomi. And so Naomi actually caught all of this on the phone, like video of me catching Imani. And it's just like, for me, it's full circle about like why I wanted my kids to be a part of this, why I wanted them to like see this. Like she's been there for all of her siblings' births, and like she can tell you about them, and she talks about them with such joy and such power that like that's her experience. Like that's like the building blocks of her relationships with her siblings. And just how all of my kids' births have just really impacted like my family's love for each other. It's just what it like is all of it to me. And so just to know that like you hear how excited she is. She's like, she caught the baby. The baby's here. Let me see that baby. How excited she is about all of that, and like wanting to tell everybody about that is just full circle about like why allowing people the opportunity to see birth in this way, and even at such a young age, how impactful that can be. And like, even, Omari was a bit more like, he's younger. So, like later when we're laying in the bed and, Effie and Audrey are showing Naomi the placenta, like we're talking about the placenta. Omari's like, yeah, mommy, you were screaming and that was really loud and that scared me. But then he goes, but we did a good job. And it's like, but we did a good job.
We did.
We did that. So even though like he had those moments of uncertainty, he still felt safe, right? Like they still felt safe. And there was prep work that we did to prepare for that. But like this birth was all of ours. And I think to round out that this is really the last one for us. But I caught her, even though like in my mind I had planned out I wanted Frankie and the kids to catch her, but that I caught her in a space with a dear friend, in our, like, Frankie's aunt, we are in her condo, that just the family piece of it all is just beautiful. And so, yeah, literally she just fell into my arms.
I'm thinking back to when you said that you had did all that stuff that day. And when you were done, your body literally, like, the work was done. It's like, okay, now time to do some real work.
Now time to do some real work. Like the day
I'll
was
let you
just
settle
wild.
that.
And I think all of us should have known, like, oh, it's about to go down. It's time now.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm also just, like I said, I'm so grateful for those 2 weeks, because it really, I mean, like, that's birth, right? Like, it's not, there are always many sides. Like, I think we always see the end product of like, oh, they had those really intense contractions and then baby tears, but there's always buildup before then. There's always signs that your body is making those shifts, and you don't always need, if you desire a cervical check, if you desire that knowledge and that way to support you to prepare, great. But like your body and baby will always give you signs that like things are happening. And it really allowed me to be slow in that and to appreciate that time. And again, to really tune into not being afraid when the intensity happened, right? Like, yes, it was intense and it happened quick and it took everything in me, but I had no fear. And I had said before, I'm like, I didn't share this with many people. Like I went quiet during this birth, during this pregnancy. I tend to be a very out loud, give you the full picture type of person. But this pregnancy really required me to be with me a lot. And that was scary at times. But I think Imani knew what was going to be required of me for this birth. And that required a lot of work in the beginning of just being in tune with like what I was letting go of, right? Like, as I said, I was sad about this transition, but I needed the space to be with me to let that go. And I feel different. I have new boundaries and new things that I'm truly grateful for. But I think I was really able to, like, within that, I was telling people, like, this was the first pregnancy where I actually had said, like, I was scared. I was afraid of the outcome. And I think part of that was due to my work as a doula during COVID and seeing a lot of shitty stuff during that time, that fear did creep up into me. But like I said, allowing that slowness during pregnancy and those 2 weeks, I was not afraid at all. Like, I was in it. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I do want to tap back in one more thing that you shared about, and that is the commitment of your birth doula. That she was with you and your family for 2 weeks. And I think that when people think about doulas, they think about just your birth, just your labor. They think about why do they charge so much?
On us the
So you're a
money,
birth
the
worker and
reason.
you're a doula. You know that you're limited in your capacity to take so many families at a time, and you still have to make a living. And I think that those are things that just should be thrown in there in the mix, as we're both birth workers. And we know that wasn't an easy thing, whether or not she had any other clients or anything else going on, right?
Yeah. Oh Wait, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. I
Oh,
had
okay.
an interruption
Yeah, I was gonna.
that I didn't think was supposed to come through.
Right? I put the do not
Oh, do
disturb
not
on.
disturb. I
Um,
did.
no, and I think I
Tell
do
us
want to
about.
say something. Oh, to that. That was an. I want to be clear too. Not all doulas are gonna do that, but that was an
Right.
arrangement that we set up with Monique in the beginning, right? So everyone was clear of what that relationship would look like. We were also clear about what would happen if she couldn't make it. I knew that I wasn't going to have a backup, but we knew what virtually that would be. Um, but yeah, there was very clear intention between, like, that was a shared decision about, will this work for all of us? Does this
Mm-hmm.
make sense for all of us? Because we could have easily said, well, let's just do everything virtual.
Mm-hmm.
But Monique was willing to commit that time and space to us, and we were willing to commit that time and space and money to her because we knew that it was worth it, right? I knew from the beginning, oh, we need this. This needs to be
Mm-hmm.
in here.
It's the
And I
goodie.
mean, that was even, part of like when we were creating, our birth registry for this, was making sure that we also put in, like, any funds that you send over as part of our gift registry go towards supporting this, right? Because it's worth it. This is a part of me being able to have, or us being able to have the birth that we want. Um, Onesies are cute. We need those. Diapers, we need those too, but we also need this doula.
Right. So talk to us about postpartum.
Yes. So we are a little over 2 months postpartum. And it has been as deep as, hold on one second, let me get my charger because Laurel's things are never charged.
I started to ask you if you were charged up.
Just, so just bear with us. I'm never charged. um, okay, so postpartum. It has been wonderful, but it has also been it has its moments of challenges. I mean, we always say ebbing and flowing. Um, Imani, so as you guys know, lactation. I love lactation. I love talking about feeding the babies. And Imani is teaching me many lessons. Um, she has a lip and a tongue tie, and so in the beginning, nursing was really really hard. Cracked nipples, lots of pain, lots of figuring out how to support feeding. But I will say the amount of support I have seen postpartum has allowed us to continue nursing, because there was definitely one night where I was bawling my eyes out looking at Frankie like, this is why people stop. Like, this is tough. Um, this is really, really hard. But I have been fully supported by the birthmark doulas, the New Orleans Breastfeeding Center, which is an entity of the birthmark doulas. And again, like, I work for them, but this is the same type of showing up that they did for me as the showing up that they do for everyone, right? So we basically went a whole month being fed by community, whether that was birthmark doulas, whether that was family, whether that was friends sending gift cards to feed us, like not having to worry about food and nourishing foods, right, for the whole family, has just allowed ease in this journey. Consistent check-ins and checkups, like having people be like, okay, yes, we'll get someone over there to check on you. Having people be able to support the older kiddos, right? Because it's a big transition for them too. So having them being entertained. My in-laws took them for a couple of days so that Frankie and I could just be in deep with the newness of a newborn. Being able to have people to just call and be like, yeah, today's a low day, right? Like, this feels, even though it's the third time, it's different. It still feels new. There's still those challenges. And also me coming back home to myself. I think, we hit 2 months and I feel like I'm in that comfortable spot. Like, I'm still figuring out, like, coming out of the fog of what the first month brings. Like the first month, I think you're still like pretty much on the high of it all. There's still like that immediate community rallying around you. And yes, my community is still pouring into us, but that like immediate of it, right? So it's kind of, I feel like those sometimes can be a distraction to what you're feeling and thinking to yourself. But now like we've hit 2 months, I'm actually able to just like sit and be like, wow, we have 3 kids. We got 3 kids. And and then my in-laws have been really supportive. My parents actually got to come and visit and meet her. And I think I'm just overjoyed with love right now. I think, I was telling someone, this being the third one, this being the last one, for real, that time just seems so precious right now. And like, I just want to hug everybody. I want to, I want everyone to feel this as part of their postpartum. And that's not to say I have definitely had moments where like I'm crying in the shower because I'm like, what the heck? There's 3 of y'all wanting 3 things from me. Or, trying to make sure that Frankie still feels supported in all of this, because like hands down, Frank, like a large part of being able to be so comfortable is having a partner who just is like in it with you. And he's been deep in it with me. But I've been able to value the lows. I've been able, and I say that, and I know it sounds like I'm really, but I've been able to allow the lows and like the heaviness, and not, again, be afraid of that either. To be able to tell him or like tell others, like, yeah, today's a struggle, but that's okay. And tomorrow will be a different thing. But then also being able to parent in a sense of gratitude too. Like I got 3 people, who are amazing, and we did that. My body did that. And I'm just grateful. So I'm ebbing and I'm flowing. I really am. Yeah.
That's beautiful. There's something to be said about Frankie, of course, will be deep in it regardless, but the fact that he's on sabbatical,
Yes.
not saying that he's not working, right? He has his
Right.
projects, but it's different. You think about these other countries where there is paid family leave, so there's paternity leave, and there's also maternity leave, because it allows you to help your family adjust and grow in this very finite time.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, I think we've seen the differences too. Like we've talked about the differences with each of our kiddos. And, maybe we'll have him on for Imani's, but I know like some conversations we share, like with Nay, with his work, he was working in the afternoons. So he actually spent a lot of time with Naomi, in that early postpartum, because of the way his work was. And then with Omari, he didn't have that same space. And there were like definitely like him finding his groove with that, I think took a little time, because it wasn't the same type of like time and space that he had with Omari in that early postpartum. With Imani, we have a lot more time. So he's also able to be in it. And we've talked about the differences we've seen with being able to just him being able to have his transition, right? Like we talk a lot about me, but like him being able to find his rhythm, with the kiddos, and then being able to support me in my own healing, being able to catch on things, being able like, did you take your medicine? Did you, how's your body feeling today? Being able to take the older 2 out so that I can just like nurse without 80 people crawling on top, like feeling like there's 80 people crawling on top of me. So, but it is so important that he has the space to be able to do that and think about all those things. Because you're right. Like if he was, still like actively teaching right now, there would be a lot more like trying to figure out a rhythm in that.
Mm-hmm. And for those who are, new to the nursing game, like this is your third time around, and there have been, like as you described, like these challenges and things. As you start to think of what you want to share with our listeners, whether it be, the breastfeeders, the new parents, those who are expecting, what would you like to share today as a mother of 3, this
Listen,
new Laurel? Okay.
no matter how many times you've done it, do the prep work, set your community up. It is it's so like, you know, we've said this on the show a million times, but like we don't live in the same way we did where like your village was just right there. Like we do have to do a bit more creative work um to set it up, and that's fine, but we have to do the work to do that. And no, like our families are well intentioned, but I think if you wanted to look a certain way and make sure that you have those foundational pieces, there is some work you have to do, right? Like if there's certain meals you want, there is like talking about these are the type of meals I know my father-in-law makes a mean stew, right? I needed that stew. I knew I needed it. So I was like, Papa, can you make that stew for me? And like, you know, he's an amazing cook. And I knew that that would be a way that like would be really supportive for me. But that took me acknowledging that, right? Like, I know he wants to help. Here's how we can like make sure I get exactly what I want out of that. With lactation, like I had already set up my appointments with the breastfeeding center. Even though like with my other two, like the journey still took work, I knew that I was going to need support. So I set those appointments up in advance. Like I knew I was going to need people to check in to make sure things were like easy going. Even as a lactation coach, I was doing like my own learning, but like reading about what early nurses, practicing my hand expression in the beginning so that I would have that as a tool, which came in handy, like with some of the challenges that Imani and I had. And tapping into making sure I had a doula and midwife. So all of that was like prep that I do that like no matter how many kids you've had, having support and doing the prep work is just really, really important. Do it. Invest in it. Get other people to help you invest in it. Because it's important. It really, really is, to make sure that you have solid foundation for your healing, your recovery, your coming back home.
Mm-hmm.
You need that.
Well, we still
And
have
we have a
some
lot of
pieces.
resources on the podcast that you can tap into.
Right, right. I
And
do
that
want
was
to
another thing.
open. What's that?
I like, you know, we this podcast is just as important. I think for all of the community who finds it important, but it was important for me. It was a tool that I use. I was listening to stories. I was doing the meditation. I was tapping back into this because I knew that was going to empower me too. And I've seen that not only doing these interviews with you all, but like it's powerful. It's helpful.
You ready to take some questions? Is
Yes. Ask
ask
away.
now. You can send us, type in some questions that you might have. I'm not going to hold you too much longer. You guys have stuck around and listened to us, and especially tapping into what Laurel has to say today. So we are grateful for you just being in the space. But if you have any questions for her directly about her birth experience, navigating all the birth team choices, those different things, go ahead and type in. Or if you just have questions about the podcast as well in our community. What's it like living in a new city and not being with Fam Bam? How does that look? Oh, are you getting it? Whoa, where'd you go? Lost you. Oh, it's trying to come back. You
Technology.
back? You back? You back?
I think I saw a question about not being with family, but I can't see it anymore.
Yes, it says, what's it like living in a new city and not being with Fam Bam? How does that look?
Yeah. So this is like I have family here, right? This
Mm-hmm.
is I'm with all of Frankie's family, which is my family. So that I knew I was covered in family support, but it also is different for like every family is different, right? And also just having your immediate family around is different too. So I think what it came to was the different support and needs that each family shows up in the way for me, managing that, right? And just, you know, my mom and my dad is my peeps, my siblings. So it was hard at times, right? My
Mm-hmm.
mom
Mm-hmm.
and dad have been a part of my other like very close to my other two's birth. So my parents were at Naomi's birth. We had Omari's birth at their home. So not being able for them to like see those physical shifts of me changing throughout my pregnancy. I think not being able to like talk to them as on hand, like we were, of course, phone calls and stuff, but I felt that absence, right? And
Mm-hmm.
especially coming off from early pandemic days where like we weren't seeing each other the way that we had been used to. I definitely did feel that absence in times. So it was difficult, but I think those would be the times where like you would try to tap into my family here a bit more, like make sure I had the support in that way, or being able to communicate that with Frankie or communicate that with Monique, like I'm feeling that absence. Because I think for me personally, being able to comfortably say those things out loud does a lot for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do tend to hold things in, and that just makes me shut down and not be my best self. But being able to verbalize those things is really important for me. So I felt I was able to do that.
Can you see me?
I can see you. Can you see me?
No, I just want to make sure everyone else can see us. Maybe they can see. Okay, your next question. Do you see that one? How do you make the decision of who do I want there for the birth?
Ooh, yes. So we actually, shout out to Danny and I, because we will post the work that we do too. I actually created a document to help make those decisions, right? Like, we say creating your birth team is kind of like the same way you're setting up for any other large event in your life. What type of energy are those people going to bring? And so this birth was different. Like I said, this pregnancy, I went a little quiet. And I had told Frankie that I kind of wanted it to be a bit more intimate. With Naomi's birth, my in-laws, my parents, and one of my best friends was there. And that was like a party, and that felt good. For Omari's birth, my whole family was there. My parents, my siblings were there. But I was just feeling that with this pregnancy, I needed a bit more intimacy. And I really just wanted it to be us with the kids and our doula and the midwives. And I just wanted it to be quiet in that way. And not because anything like had happened between that. I just knew that I needed the energy to be really focused in this time around. So I think for me, that's how I made that decision. But I think in any time when you're making a decision about who you want to be there, think about what energy those folks bring to that space, right? Are you going to need calming energy? Are you going to need a hype person? Are you going to need someone who knows how to like push you beyond what you sometimes think you're capable of? Are you going to need people who can also be in check of their own emotions? Because we bring our own emotions to birth spaces too, right? So you want to make sure that people you have there are able to take a step back and really be focused in on you. Because all of that will show up in a birth space. It's one of the most vulnerable things that you're going to do. And you want to make sure that you can be your most vulnerable self with those people.
Absolutely. And that checklist, our guest list, it's a BSiC birthday guest list. It's actually on our Patreon under Birth Stories in Color. And that gives a more detailed view and something that you can actually print out and write on and everything.
Yeah. And
And then go ahead.
I should also add too, like with a home birth, I have a bit more flexibility about those decisions too, right? Because it's my home. I can decide who can go in and out. Whereas in a hospital or even a birth center currently, right, there's a bit more restriction. So I also think making sure based on your like what those restrictions are with your place of birth, so that you're able to make those decisions as well, because you may only be allowed two people, and that might include your doula, that might include your midwife. Thinking about a transfer, that was really important too. Like, would my midwives be able to join us as part of my people? Because I wanted to make sure I had someone who had been taking care of me in a medical way to be able to transfer that information over into a medical space, right?
Yes. And it's important that people know that even if you can't choose a home birth for whatever reason, you can always labor at home, right? Something, of course,
Okay.
you check in with your medical provider to see what your own personal health, if that's advantageous for you. And labor at home. You can labor at home.
You can
You can
labor at
labor at
home.
home. Just show up ready to
Just
push
show
your
up.
baby out. Next one says, as much as you wanted a home birth, was there any part of you that still had doubts?
Always. I think um, I'm a low risk. Like I said, my births are pretty straightforward. I'm low risk. Home birth makes sense for me, right? I mean, even with my first, I thought about a home birth, but I didn't know enough to make that decision then. But there is a small piece of you that is like, does this make sense? Will this work out the way I want it to? But I think that's where having a strong support team helps remind you of why you made those decisions, and if everything continues to move in a safe and healthy way, that you can still do that. You're able to do that. There's doubt, right? It comes up, it gets scary. Birth is intense. Birth requires you to go to a place that you've never been before, even if you've done it three, four, five times, one time, right? Like, it requires you to cross over into a space that can be scary. And so making sure you have a strong support system that reminds you of your power is really important. And also that you feel comfortable enough. Like, I knew that no matter what, if anything came up, if it was an emergency, or if, like I said, I wanted to make that shift, my support team, my midwives, my doula would be capable to help me make the best decision. So that allowed that doubt to be really small, because I knew that I was always safe.
Any other questions?
These are great questions, y'all.
They really are. Thank you for being willing to share today, Laurel.
Yes. I am grateful to be able to share. I just feel blessed to be in the space to share birth joy.
Yeah. And it is, Black Maternal Health Week 2022. And the big part of it is centering Black birthing people, their experiences, their stories, their care, and that there's this extension of, it's not just these statistics that are going on and being shared constantly, but that there's joy, there is autonomy, there's people being able to self-advocate, also having resources and provisions. And we're just thankful that you shared some time with us today. We're thankful that you continue to share time and check in on the podcast and see what new stories are there. And the
Yes.
biggest thing that we've noticed is that it's not just the story that drops that week, is that there's a continuous like downloading of stories from the beginning. And that's something that we love. We love that it's a living, breathing like archive that people are tapping into so frequently.
Yeah.
Um,
And
keep
much love
coming.
to our storytellers, right? Because, like, we created this space, but we need people who want to share their experiences. And so we always say we are thankful, thankful, thankful for our storytellers, for the courage to be like, here's my voice, here's my truth.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
If anyone wants to share that hasn't already, or you want to come
Yes.
back and share again, right? We do have, you can go to our website at birthstoriesincolor.com. There's tons of opportunities for you to share your story. If you're not a member of the BIPOC community, you can absolutely find other ways to support. Of course, like I mentioned before, our Patreon is under Birth Stories in Color. We do have opportunities for advertisement and sponsorship through our work. And just, if nothing else, shoot us an email and say, how can I help, right? So,
Right.
all right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
We
all
love
this will
y'all.
be loaded. We'll be able to share this for anyone that didn't catch the whole thing, right?
Yes. Yep. Make sure
All
you press
right.
the save button. Technology be crazy.
Don't do me like that.
Don't even put those vibes out.
I don't want to touch anything now. Like,
Well, y'all
Laurel,
enjoy the
come
rest of
come
Black
save
Maternal
this
Health
for
Week.
me.
All
All
right.
right.
Bye.
Bye.